Hi, friends. I want to talk to you this week about the racial justice pledge that we've put forth for our members and friends. This week, I think it's timely to relook at that if you've already taken it, and to certainly consider it if you haven't taken it, with the trial beginning in the Derek Chauvin case, where he's accused of murdering George Floyd last year. I also want to mention that I know that's in the forefront right now, and certainly there's racism within law enforcement. But I also want to make sure that we're always holding that there's racism in most of our systems. I've got some links below that you can read more about what we're up against when it comes to racism. And I want to point out a few things for our wonderful home state of Minnesota. Wonderful as it may be, Minnesota has one of the highest education gaps in the nation and one of the highest wealth gaps in the nation between blacks and whites. It's really terrible, quite frankly, and shameful that we rank at the very bottom when it comes to equity between the races in education and wealth. Unemployment is also higher here amongst Black folks and people of color. And recently, we've also seen and read a lot about discrimination in the healthcare system in the pandemic. So this racial justice pledge is important and kind of a wide approach to doing this. And here's what the Racial Justice Pledge says. It says, I affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and I support justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. I affirm that white privilege and a culture of white supremacy are harmful to individuals and to our society, and I support efforts to dismantle them. I support racial equity, justice, and liberation for every person. So that's the gist of it. And then it says, therefore, from this day forward, and I'll unpack these a little bit, I will strive to understand more deeply the societal impacts of white privilege, including how its existence potentially benefits me. So we do this work, of course, through a lot of reading and maybe watching of films. This is education, self-education work, and understanding who we are. Second thing, I commit to help transform our fellowship culture to one that is actively engaged in seeking racial justice and equity for everyone. Right, so there are lots of ways you can do that. If you're in a book club, maybe you include some of those books around the topic of racial justice in your book club, or in any of your groups, women's groups or men's groups. We include songs. I, of course, preach about it. It's part of our curriculum, and so those are some of the ways that we do that. And, of course, we look at what we're doing and the ways that we might uphold systems that are kind of built into our policies or just our culture in general. So we continue to do that work, right? Ongoing. Next, I will make a greater effort to treat all people with the same respect I expect to receive. Goes without saying, it's kind of the golden rule. So you're just committing to making sure and reminding yourself to practice that. Next, I commit to developing the courage to live my beliefs and values regarding racial justice and equity. This is kind of like when you see something, say something. And that one's a little tougher to do, right? Because it means that we might be in conflict with people, and it might be uncomfortable, and it might be difficult. So when we try to live courageously, we try to find that space in ourselves. And one thing we can do at the fellowship is we can practice having those conversations amongst each other and create safe space there, because it does take a lot to be able to do that outside of the fellowship. It takes a lot to do it inside the fellowship too. I will strive to eliminate racial prejudice from my thoughts and actions so that I can better promote the racial justice efforts of our church. Again, striving daily to eliminate racial prejudice from my thoughts and actions. The best way that you can do that is to first become aware of any judgments that you do have. You know, as a white woman, there's that when I see a black man walking on the side of the street, if my first response is a fear, there might be some racial bias there. So just to acknowledge that you're having those feelings, I think, are the first things to do. So. And then finally, I will renew and honor this pledge daily, knowing that our congregation, our community, our nation, and our world will be a better place because of our efforts. And I really want to emphasize that. Renew this pledge daily because the world will be a better place because of our efforts. The truth is, that's the only thing that makes the world a better place. Our efforts, our commitment, our pledge to make the world a better place. Taking this racial justice pledge isn't like signing up for a class or a curriculum where there's a checklist of things to do. These are guidelines and suggestions of how you might live and embody this in your daily work. And it's a reminder that all of your efforts matter, whether they're big or small, whether they're internal or external. I hope you'll join us in doing this work, this defining work, this work that is set out to make the world a better place. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.